Hi there, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining this morning. So this is our session, Enhancing Agile into Education. This is hosted by the Agile Business Consortium, and we are the professional body for business agility. We're in our 26th year of developing Agile professionals. So welcome. And we have fantastic speaker with us who works with us very closely and is a huge advocate for us. She's a huge asset, and that's Aga Gajownik. She's a social entrepreneur and general wizard when it comes to agility. And she leads SEE, which is Scrum Educational Experience, and she's going to be speaking through the session today. So thank you, Aga, for joining us and for your time this morning. Just a little bit of housekeeping before I hand over to Aga. So if I could just ask all of you guys to keep yourself on mute whilst Aga's going through the presentation, that would be great. And just to let you know, we are recording the session for the Reflect 20 festival to be able to give them the recording afterwards. So just to make you all aware of that. And also, if you have any questions for Aga about the session, please pop them in the chat, and I'm sure Aga will be able to get a chance to get to them at the end or whenever's appropriate in the session for her. So yeah, everything from me. Thank you very much. And Aga, I'll pass over to you.
Hello everyone, thank you so much, Rachel, for the introduction, and Agile Business Consortium for including me in this festival. How exciting! It's been 20 years since Agile Manifesto was created, and I'm really excited that I can kind of open this series of workshops. So today, as Rachel mentioned, we'll be talking about Agile in education. Full disclaimer before that, it will be pretty much my journey through trying to make education a bit more agile and experiment. So bear with me with the storytelling, and I really hope that you enjoy the journey as much as I have for the past 5 years. So before I get into this, here is a little bit more about me. So my name is Aga Gajownik. I am a founder, trainer, agile coach, or whatever title I'll come up with, since being an entrepreneur, I have that power. I do lead one company in London, Scrum Educational Experience. It's an edtech startup, as well as Innovation and Integration, which is innovation consulting business here in Singapore. Here are some links. If you want to connect, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm quite active there. I'm always excited to see people and connect with them. So how I got into Agile. I was actually a very, very good student. When I was graduating, I had pretty much kind of like 90% average on my final school certificate. However, I was one of those quirky students, since I was quite hyperactive. So lots of teachers had no patience for me, and I often heard that, what will you do in life? Like, you will end up unemployed or a politician, because I could always like talk my way out of any complicated situation. However, confident on the outside, I actually felt really stressed on the inside. That led to panic attacks for many years. And this is how I got on the journey to finding solutions to my own issues in terms of like organizing myself, building my career. And as a result, I actually ended up designing my own career, which is connected of lots of talking, since I was always talking too much, training, speaking, and trying to work my way through organizing anything I can in order to help people like me who are in a space of trying to find their path. My goal is to help them find this path successfully. And through all of those years, I would say 10 years working with entrepreneurs, women in business, I actually came across Agile naturally, because I ended up creating my own I would say like project management program, which had like parking lots and sprints and all of the blocks of times, because this is what worked for my brain specifically. And then I learned that there was something called Agile Manifesto, which I actually learned about in Brazil in 2015. I'm sorry, Agile Manifesto I learned about earlier, but when I realized how I can implement it in education was in Brazil in 2015, since all of the techniques I had could be connected to everything I was doing in business side. As you can see, I always would say, like, in business, it works the same as in education and what we do during our mini sprints. And this is how Scrum Educational Experience was actually born. It was based on Agile Manifesto and a generic idea of sprints and learning in a very focused manner. As you probably all know, it's all about individuals' interactions, working solutions, customer collaboration, and responding to change. And I decided to implement all of this in my methodology, which is C. As you can see, it also has hackathons and experiential learning as the element of everything else. But today it's not about that. Today we're focusing about Agile. And why I decided to bring it into education. I found education quite scary. And when I started looking for solutions, I noticed that everything is very square. And if you're a little bit quirky as a student, it's really challenging for you to come up with the idea of what you can do in life. Because there is this very famous saying that was published in some of the reports that we're creating, educator's role is to teach students to prepare for jobs that don't exist yet. And I found it to be very, very true. However, in here, I can see another report. By the way, I'll just put lots of reports in and links to them so you can read them. I'm not going to kind of like talk about them in detail, but I think that it will give you the idea of what's happening currently and how we can kind of work with this. So in this report, as you can see, it's all about competencies for the future in terms of creating new value, reconciling tensions and dilemmas, and taking responsibilities. And I think those three elements are very, very aligned with Agile and what we learn in Scrum and all other methodologies. And this is where I really started to kind of like connecting to and bringing it into a classroom. And I'll take you through my journey from the youngest participants of our hackathons, since they were the most fun to work with. They were turning into robots, putting cardboard boxes on their heads, health and safety out of the window at that point. So our teachers were trying to kind of like put us in line, but at the same time, what we noticed, they were learning a lot, and they started connecting the dots in terms of what they're learning at school and how they can use it in the future in terms of job. So the way I called this section would be like children learning with purpose, as it's very easy to tell them, oh, you have to learn because this is what is important. But when a child actually understands what they're learning and how they can use it in the future and do cool things like building robots, they actually have a next level of excitement. And this is what we actually wrote about during our case study with Islington Councils. And we're talking about agility in education, working with several schools. And as a result of this movement, I would say it was in December 2018, we actually ended up creating a research proposal in terms of building a product development game, which is our mini hackathon. Commercially, we call it STEAM, and bringing it into schools. And this is what we do with teachers. We actually help them learning how to bring Agile principles into the classroom in order to create the process of learning where students can explore their interests and skills and knowledge they want to learn themselves, but in a very controlled and safe environment, minus the boxes on their heads. But this, we take them off very quickly. Taking it from here, we go one stage higher, which we're talking about teenagers. And here I would say it's all about engaging them to solve real problems. As teenage years are those very quirky years where students are still looking for their own purpose in life, like who am I as a person? Emotions are all over the place, and then they still have to do the work at school, and very often they hear that they're either not good enough or they're naughty, or lots of negative language, which obviously personally broke my heart when I thought about it in the wider spectrum. So back in 2017, we actually ran a mini hack introducing Agile methodologies into the classroom in Gillingham in Kent. So if anyone from there, hi. It was a brilliant session with very proactive teachers that actually led to creating a level 2 award in digital development provided by one of our partners, a company called Future Coders. So as you can see, they implemented very similar looking to Scrum structure of a learner's journey in order to introduce students to being proactively resilient in their studies. So they start with a hackathon, then they work in sprints, introducing things that they learn into real challenges that they solve. Because what we notice with this age group is when you give students something that they can actually make a difference in, they really start engaging and they really start coming up with solutions, and very often they're amazing solutions, especially when we work around areas of development that can help young people, because they know what they need, because they're the customers that we're developing the solutions for. So that's the second example of how we bring agility into schools. And coming from here, I just wanted to highlight the element on how all of this connects. So here in this report, we can see the transferable skills that many people don't even mention when they're at schools. Lots of students, they actually think that they're not really good at potentially working in the future because they don't have very strict knowledge about XYZ. But as we can see, things like oral communication, initiative, problem solving, resilience and creativity, those are the skills that were mostly highlighted by the employers during this study in the UK in 2019. So based on that, all of those elements we implement in our agile journey, because building sprints and negotiating the deliverables and all the things that actually have to happen will include more or less this set of skills as well as others. And that takes me to young people. And as young people, I mean, kids, they hate when I call them kids, but like from the age of around 16 to the age of around 30 and higher, because I do know some 40, 50 and even 60-year-olds that decide to change their life in are in a very similar headspace to this. But in here, let's focus on the traditional young people. This is actually the profile that we created during the, was that 2017 conference or 2018 with Agile Business Consortium. We were trying to understand Generation Z, and we have noticed that there are lots of pains like feeling overwhelmed, stress and anxiety, and uncertainty about the future among young people today. And this is what we decided to address again, because as you can see, very familiar panic attacks are actually very common now, and especially 2020 that happened. We're in 2021, which is not very different, but when 2020 happened, I noticed that lots of young people actually got into even more stressful situation because lots of their internships got cancelled. Lots of companies, unfortunately, had to fire them, or they didn't have capacity to invest in the learning and development. And that can be a very, very scary place to be. And this is where my personal passion comes in again, because I really believe that if we give young students the opportunity to kind of like work around what they want to explore and create the space to fail successfully. So here is the title of my slide. It can really empower them. It builds confidence, and it can create amazing professionals that they can turn into once they start working and start developing. And this is what we focus on during our campaign, our contribution, Scrum Educational Experience contribution into campaign Generation Agile, that we participate with Agile Business Consortium on a monthly basis now, as we really want to create the group of Agile professionals. As you can see, Agile 2021 workshops are really focusing on becoming more agile as a professional, gain confidence in planning, prioritizing, and execution of projects. As we can see, those are all kind of like agile area of skills, and then reflect on impact of agile on career development. Because the moment when we create independent, resilient, and I would say like self-managing individuals, because this is this kind of like holy grail of teams when we develop teams, is like self-managing teams or like self-developing teams. So like I like moving it to self-managing professionals and get them on the agile journey where they're proactive and resilient and just kind of like continually testing what they learn. they really thrive and they can really contribute to bigger organizations. And here's the example of what we did at the last workshop, which was to reflect on 2020 and get clear on what people wanted for 2021. Develop a simple tool, which was the vision board, since we were focusing on this, and then visualizing personal and professional objectives, because that's another thing that I'm personally very passionate about. It's not only about developing organizations and agile systems on professional level, but also becoming more agile on a personal level helps us in creating this agile culture mindset in our heads that will take us to any job and will help us in being part of an agile team without really kind of like staying behind, I would say, because like that's really important. And that takes me to the last case study of the actual adults. We worked with ING Bank here in Singapore last year for several months, working on transformation, innovation transformation with my colleague Suzanne Voss. In what I would say the title for this is Build on What We Have. As many people, when they hear about agile transformation or any kind of transformation, they start being a little bit comprehensive because they're scared of change. They're scared of failure, I would say. This is, again, like the main thing that like, oh, I'm in this good place. Maybe I don't like it so much, but I know it can really help me in kind of like going forward. And then when someone tries to kind of change everything, it's like it becomes really scary. So the moment when we want to introduce rapid change in organizations, I really believe it's all about understanding what people have already and how we can enhance it and build on it in the form of experiments, the way agile methodologies work, in order to get them a little bit more confident on how they can drive change themselves. Because the moment when we empower them with tools and teach them how to kind of like do things themselves, they actually will add all the creativity they have in our head into our case and build something much better than just us trying to have all the answers. And imagine the responsibility that comes with us. So this is another case study you can read in your free time. But just to close this presentation, I would like to present something which is a little bit controversial maybe, and some people might say, it's like, Aga, you're crazy, why? That's too much. Like, we need to kind of like research the process a little bit longer. But I would say in the past 5 years of working with Agile within the educational space, I created this C Manifesto that I hope you like, but feel free to comment on and give me any thoughts that we can build it into something better. So we are uncovering better ways of teaching by continuous experimentation and following the student. This came from my passion for Montessori method, because the moment when we want to build something for people, the collaboration with the customer and the student is super crucial. And then through this work, we have come to value individuals and interactions of a process and benchmarking. Because again, every single time when I talk to schools and they ask me, how much should the 12-year-old know about digital skills compared to everyone else? And I'm like, I'm not sure. It depends in which direction they want to go, because they can't really know everything. Then second thing is practical solutions over content overload. They have so much content that they're exposed to, and it can be very scary and overwhelming. So the moment when we show them what really matters in a given moment, even if they learn other things in the future, it can really help them in just like having this calm peace of mind and avoid 12-year-olds having tantrums because they have anxiety attacks. So definitely having the practical solutions that show them how they can use the knowledge in the future. Then student collaboration over having all the answers, as I mentioned earlier, lots of responsibility. Why? Let's work with them and see what we can learn together. And then responding to change over following a plan. Again, plan is important, process is important, but 2020 showed us that we have to really learn how to respond to change in order to thrive in the environment that can be very challenging. And as you can see, that is why we value the items on the right, which is the old way. We value the items on the left more. So that would be my personal adding to kind of like the way we can go forward with Agile. And with this said, I would like to thank you and start the Q&A, as well as mention a little bit about the way you can get involved. So the first things I would say, come to our Generation Agile workshops. We'll send you an email about it straight after. If you know any young people, let us know. They can always reach out to us and we can help them out with the Agile professional training through Generation Agile, as well as the internship program that we designed for them. And then if you know any teachers on education or educators, also get them to reach out to us, and we provide free C-STEAM facilitator training that can help them enhance the content that they provide and build it together with the students. And with that said, I'm going to open the chat and read all of your comments and respond to them, as if I did it earlier, I would get very, very sidetracked. Okay, so we've got amazing people from Netherlands, UK, Georgia, Rome, Spain, Sydney, Australia, amazing, Italy, UK, Edinburgh, lots of people, Copenhagen. And then we have the questions. Age range where you think about hackathon, what is the particular age range? So I believe hackathons can be used anywhere from 8-year-olds up. The reason for that is because younger children, 7-6-year-olds, we try to do this, might find it a little bit overwhelming in terms of following the structure. I would introduce a little bit more playful activities with them, or like with less content. But we tested things on year 5 in the UK, which were 8-year-olds. The only thing I would say, remove the element of competition because they start stressing too much. But anything else goes, and they have amazing ideas, and very often they actually have even better ideas than adults. So I would say any age, but with simplification of the program with younger children. Then we will share the presentation. Are we having feedback? Because usually we hold presentations hostage for feedback purposes. Good or bad, we take any. If you want the presentation, please leave your email in the end and we'll send it to you. Also, I mentioned failing successfully. It was the key element of creating a safe space for young people to feel comfortable to fail successfully. Firstly, to me, failing successfully is getting as much information as we can from failure. Because failure will happen, like we can't avoid it. It will just happen. But the moment when we approach it from like learning from it, attitude, then this is to me failing successfully. So I would say the moment we fail, we can cry for like 2 hours or like throw a tantrum, lie on the floor. It's like, oh no, my life is in pieces, so bad. Then after 2 hours, get up, look through the situation and learn from your mistakes. So get as much feedback as you can. That's the moment where we really dive into retros. So I think if you join our workshop in March, we'll be talking about retros, or April, I don't remember exactly, but sometime in the future, and learn how to get this space where there is no right or wrong. There is just something that happened that we can learn from. And through creating this space without judgment, but being factual, it's a safe space based on what we're doing so far. Maybe other people have different solutions, but this is what we've been doing and been working. How do you suggest supporting staff as they move from CNC to Agile command and control? Ooh, command and control. This is the first element that I always come across when I work with adults. They're so used to having this whole like, I have to have all the answers and I have to have control. That's the most challenging things to change. And I always encourage changing the mindset from being the teacher, director, manager, and like the person with this crazy lots of responsibility to being the facilitator. So in leadership, we'll be talking about servant leadership, or we'll be talking about kind of like leading by wandering around, even sometimes. So kind of like learning and working together and empowering people to actually become better at their jobs, so we have to worry less. And I would say the level of control goes from like really high to slowly down to low, and giving other people the control, while at the same time on the same axis the level of trust goes up. Because at the very beginning I noticed that lots of people, they feel like they need to have control because they don't really trust others, or they're worried that things will go wrong. And then the moment when they start experimenting with giving people a little bit more responsibility and giving people a little bit more freedom and see the results, the working results, then the trust and this kind of like safe space grows. and then they don't have to control it so much any longer. So I would say from the very beginning, start with tiny little steps of getting people to give responsibility to people that we manage, and through this we can get more into letting go of this traditional setup where we have to have all the answers and work with people. Okay, support staff. Then the next one. We love to have feedback. Yes, so please, feedback form is in the chat, and getting involved more. We'll send you an email about how we can get involved. And as a father of 2 teenage children, what would you suggest is the best way to get them on board with Agile way of thinking? Are there any quick wins? Oh, I don't think there are any quick wins with teenagers. You really have to play it by the ear on what kind of things they're interested in. But I would say I do know a few trainers who came to our trainings that actually have children, and they went in and they started running mini hackathons at home around topics that the kids were interested in, and sharing about what they do with work, or how they can work on little projects, introducing a little bit more Agile into their kind of like daily routine. So I would say, since those are teenage children, like I'm not sure what age they are, but like if they are, I would say older than 15, 16, they would probably benefit a lot from our Generation Agile workshops, and with your permission. And then if they're younger, come to our facilitator training, and we can show you like a quick stay-at-home mini hackathon tool, and then your children can actually decide what they want to do with it, or they don't want to do anything with it. So then give them space to kind of like decide on when they are ready to come back to this. But not being too pushy, I learned, is much more beneficial with teenagers. And believe me, I did run a hackathon for 150 teenagers in Oman, and it was a challenge. Okay, last one. How do you suggest we support our education system, preschool, school, and unis, in using this adaptive way of learning? Again, I would say starting with little steps and understanding teachers more. Before I started going into schools and bringing what I believed was the way of working that could support them, I actually went into schools for around 3 years and volunteered and actually learned what the biggest problems are, because that's actually very close to my heart. My parents are teachers, and I grew up being told that I should study a lot because they didn't want me to become a teacher. So it's like, if you study, you won't have to be a teacher. It's like upside down. But at the same time, the reason for that was because they were very overwhelmed with all of the processes and systems and everything that they keep getting add on, rather than, like, I've never heard of any teacher that had anything removed from their responsibilities. Teachers only have things added on to the responsibilities. So it's not only welfare of children, behavioral issues, the actual passing on knowledge, but lots of administration and other things. So again, trying to understand where the problem is in terms of kind of like how we can support them rather than trying to expect them to change. It is already a big shift in mindset, and we can really help them with this. And then the moment when you can see where the biggest pain points are, let's try to do it Agile way and try introducing tiny little things that could potentially help. So even in one of our hackathons, one of the teachers saw Kanban board. I was like, that's genius. I'm just going to put it on the wall and work with students through this, so we can work together and have the transparency. So even those little tools, just let's start introducing them, and then grow the strategy together, because those people on the ground know best what solution they need in a given moment. And then those solutions will not set in stone, they will vary. And I know most people who are creating systems are yelling at me like, no, we can't, we really have to have something unified. Unification will come later, but at the very beginning we are in these uncertain times and we have to let them experiment a little. Okay, and with this said, very inspirational topic. Thank you, Aga. Thank you so much for your attention. Looking forward to hearing your feedback, and I'm only 1 minute over time, so thank you. Over to you, Rachel.
Aga, thank you so much. That was really, really inspiring. And yeah, I think some of the questions we had from you guys were awesome as well. It was a really, really great topic. And as Aga mentioned, I've added the feedback link into the chat because we'd love to hear from you guys as to what you thought of this session, if there's anything we can improve on. So yeah, please let us know your feedback, because we'll be doing some more sessions throughout the festival, so we'd like to kind of improve for you guys. As you can see on the slide, you can stay in touch with us via our newsletter, different events that we do, much like the Generation Agile event that Aga mentioned, which would be perfect for this topic if this is what you're kind of most interested in. And I can send you the link to that event in the in an email later today for everyone that's in this event today, so you can sign up. But without further ado, I'll just say a huge thank you to Aga for her time this morning, and a huge thank you to all of you guys from all over the world. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we all hope from SEE, from Scrum Educational Experience, from Aga, and from the Agile Business Consortium that you enjoy the rest of the Reflect 20 Festival. So thank you so much, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day.